I know, Craig, that you've been kind of deeply involved with ASCE, the American Society of Civil Engineers, for over 25 years. And I know you've been involved starting as a student all the way up to now serving as Region 9 Governor. Talk a little bit about that journey with ASCE and how that's helped to shape your leadership style, your teamwork skills, and really just your career overall.
As I joined, I think my first meeting, they said, "Hey, why don't you join a board position?" I said, "Well, just join." They said, "Okay, how about a committee?" So I joined as the golf tournament committee chair. And what I learned from that really was you just got to jump in and try something new. I think the biggest takeaway I got from that whole experience was,
did you know that the way a firm is owned can fundamentally shape how infrastructure projects are delivered and how teams are led? In this episode of the AEC Leadership Podcast, I'm joined by Craig Shannon, Vice President and California Regional Leader at Parametrix. Craig will share how employee ownership, firm culture, and modern project delivery are transforming leadership in today's industry. He'll also talk about how his longtime involvement with ASCE has shaped his leadership journey and continues to influence his approach to building teams and delivering impactful projects. If you're leading teams, managing complex projects, or exploring what drives firm-wide performance, this conversation is for you. Now, before I jump in with Craig, I do want to tell you about our AEC PM Connect event, where emerging experienced leaders can learn about real-world strategies to drive performance, empower teams, and lead with purpose. Visit aecpmconnect.com and register today. We currently have events in Kansas City and New Jersey, with more coming soon. I'm your host, Anthony Fasano, and this is the AEC Leadership Podcast, previously the Engineering Career Coach. Let's jump in. Strong project outcomes need skilled managers and competent leaders. EMI's corporate training delivers expert-led courses in project management and people leadership, plus industry-recognized certification and exclusive premium content to take your team even further. Elevate your team's leadership capabilities today. Visit engineeringmanagementinstitute.org and click on corporate training. All right, now I'd like to welcome my guest onto the show for today. Craig Shannon is a Vice President and California Regional Leader at Parametrix. Craig, welcome to the AEC Leadership Podcast.
"Hey, thanks. Good to see you, Anthony. Appreciate you having me."
Yeah, Craig, really excited to have you on here. We're going to dive into leadership and a lot of other things around it. But first things first, maybe you can share a little bit about yourself, Craig, and kind of your path that led you to your current role as VP and California Regional Leader at Parametrix.
Definitely. Yeah, I started out as a bridge engineer. So I started out designing bridges, very technical. But early on, I think I realized the bigger project was for me. So I started to inquire and learn more and project manage at a young age. I was at a small company that allowed me to do a little bit of everything, helped kind of build a team, and was with that same company for my first 16, 17 years. And then from there, I joined a global firm, which was, nearly 20,000 people, spent almost 6 years there, and really kind of lost my identity a little bit and found it back here at Parametrix. So now I've been here about 2 years. Again, my role is to build up the California team here for Parametrix. We did not have a California presence until I started. And so I'm excited to be here. And we've got, almost 45 people now in the last couple of years. So,
Wow, that's great. And a couple things that you said there I think are important. One is you mentioned that, you felt like you like the bigger projects. And I think that is important in the career path of a technical professional engineer, because not project management isn't for everybody, so to speak. And the fact that you were able to recognize it can really be helpful, because you can kind of get on the right path, of course, to develop some of your PM skills and dive into project management early, which is great. And of course, the other thing you said there that's really important is, building a team, which is something that we're going to dive into a little bit today, which is critical in terms of leadership and getting projects delivered, right, in our industry. That's such a big part of it. Now, I know, Craig, that you've been kind of deeply involved with ASCE, the American Society of Civil Engineers, for over 25 years. I've been a big member myself. We've interviewed many of the national presidents on our podcast. In fact, we recently had Marsha Anderson Bomar, Marcy Gelder Murphy, Maria Lehman on the podcast. So we're big supporters of of ASCE. And I know you've been involved starting as a student all the way up to now serving as Region 9 governor. Talk a little bit about that journey with ASCE and how that's helped to shape your leadership style, your teamwork skills, and really just your career overall.
Yeah, thanks. I joined ASCE as a student. Shortly after graduating, I joined the YMF, the Younger Member Board. And from doing that, I quickly as I joined, I think my first meeting, they said, "Hey, why don't you join a board position?" I said, "Well, just join." They said, "Okay, how about a committee?" So I joined as the golf tournament committee chair. And what I learned from that really was you just got to jump in and try something new. And from there, I went all the way through president, and then I joined the section board and went all the way through the ranks of president there. And now I'm on a regional, statewide California governor role. I think the biggest takeaway I got from that whole experience was the servant leadership style, because really through that organization, I have no control of the board. I have no control of whether they're going to, commit and meet a deadline, or they don't work for me. They don't do work for me. So I had to find ways to convince people to join a committee, to be successful and be part of a bigger collective. And so I've taken that servant leadership skill and I've applied it to my work. And so I do find a lot of value in just that ability to look at the broader group and the broader goal and find ways to deliver.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think it's funny, I was going to say it always starts with the golf outing, but
Yeah, it does, right?
but to that point, and I was told this a long time ago, not only should you become a member of associations like this, but you need to get involved. As soon as you volunteer on a committee or you lead an initiative, whether it's a golf outing or you're running the events for the organization in general, the treasurer, I mean, whatever it is, once you get involved at a higher level, that's where you start to meet people, right? Build really good relationships, take on more responsibilities, build your skill sets, right? Like maybe you're running a golf outing in disguise, but it is helping you with your project management and your relationship building skills, even as you're doing that. And of course, if you're in the right organization, like ASCE for a civil engineer, you're also going to build your network in the right area.
Yeah. And the other part that I didn't add was it gives you public speaking skills. It gives you team building skills. You're managing projects. So you're managing a tournament, or you're managing an awards event. You're basically doing all those things, maybe without even realizing it or understanding it, or being fearful of it. Maybe as a young engineer, you're fearful to take that next step and manage a project and be the lead and the go-to. But for some reason, in a volunteer organization, there's less pressure. It still has repercussions, but you take it on, you manage it, you lead it, you find a team that will surround you to be successful. So I think a lot of the soft skills, I would say, in my career, I really honed and learned through that participation.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because a lot of times, a multi-million dollar organization is not going to let you, hone your skills managing a real project with
Right.
big budgets and clients. And so if you're able to do something like that in a society or an organization where, it's not probably as high pressure, if you will, but it's still very much leading a team, leading a project, it can really help you. And I think Craig's point about public speaking and presentation skills is so important, because to me, if a technical professional, an architect, an engineer came up to me and said, I don't have a lot of time to invest in my skills, what skills should I focus on? I always say public speaking, for a lot of reasons. One, because the obvious reason that if you can present your projects and present in front of people, it's obviously going to be a huge game changer for you. But what I think is even more important is when you can speak in front of people, it really builds your confidence. And I think confidence in yourself is the most important thing that you can build, because it can help you with all your other skill sets. It can help you with your people interaction. And so I highly recommend it. And I think Craig's point on how these societies or organizations where you're volunteering can help you with those speaking skills is just like invaluable. I think, I know for me it was as well, getting involved with ASCE and other organizations. So some really good points there. So let's talk about team building now. I know we want to focus on that a little bit today, Craig. So you've led teams in a range of different company size settings, like you talked about when you introduced yourself, from a small company to a global large organization to a really, a growing company. And now even at an employee-owned organization, right, in Parametrix. So what leadership differences do you kind of notice across these different environments, and how have they influenced your approach to team building and project delivery in these kind of different settings?
Yeah, great question. I think for me, starting out in the small firm gave me that ability to try everything and do everything. And I really appreciated that. I thought I would stay at that company my whole career. That was my vision. I'm never going to leave. Well, that company was sold to a bigger organization. I tried that out for a couple of years and then realized I didn't really like where we landed. So then I thought, why not go to a mega firm? Why not go to the biggest, coolest projects out there? And I tried that, and I lost my identity there a bit. I feel like in that environment, you have a different role. You don't have the ability to shape and manage things maybe the same way you do in a small firm. And so after about 6 years, I thought, what am I missing? Do I need to go back to a small firm? And this opportunity at Parametrix presented itself where I thought, hey, I've heard about ESOPs. I've heard about employee ownership. What does that really mean? And as I started to think about my transition here, what came to mind is, how am I going to retain the best talent? I'm at a point in my career, I'm managing people, I'm managing projects. You get to this point where you think, all right, I've reached this great echelon in my career. Now I'm at the top and I get to do all these things. But for me, I thought, how am I going to bring the best talent around me? That's what makes me great. That's what makes my projects great. I need to be somewhere where I can retain that talent. And the employee ownership model gives me that ability. Honestly, since I've been here, I've found attracting talented staff, it's been much easier than in my previous organization. People want to be somewhere where they're wanted. They want to be somewhere where they're participating in the growth. They're participating in the profit sharing, right? It's a big thing. So I think for me, I've just seen the difference in employee ownership and the ability to bring on the staff that I need to be successful, which that means my clients get the best staff to deliver their projects.
That's great. I really like that. And I'll just say real quickly for everybody that, you know, there are a lot of different types and sizes of companies like Craig took you through in his career: small, global, right? Maybe mid-sized ESOPs, whatever the case may be. You kind of really need to figure out which is the best for you, right? And I'll say that there may be different ones that are different for you at different points of your career, right? Like for Craig, maybe starting out as a really small company, which is what I did, like a 5-person civil engineering company. It was great because I pretty much did everything from literally sweep the floor, do the surveys in the field, do some design work. And, and it was great for me at the time. And then for me, luckily, the firm was acquired by like a 300-person firm when I graduated college. And there was a lot more benefits and opportunities and things to work on that were available to me at that point in my career. So I think part of your career and part of your leadership journey is going to be to also discover which is going to be the best situation for you. And I really like Craig's explanation for how and why he chose Parametrix, because he was thinking about his teams, right? Thinking about, how can I have the best team around me? How can I retain those people? How can I then tell those people that we're going to retain their team members, right? And, the ESOP in this case makes a lot of sense because, if you're not familiar with an ESOP, it's an employee stock ownership program, which basically allows all the employees to own some percentage of the company, whatever it is. But basically they're all bought into it. So if the company does really well, it's going to, come back to them, right, in the way of the ESOP. So again, it's really a good thing to think about when you think about your leadership and, your leadership style, your philosophy, how you want to build your teams, what your company is going to provide you in the way of that support. And I think that's really important. So that's some good stuff there. All right. So Craig, let's talk a little bit about project delivery, and we can focus in your region of transportation where you focus. It's certainly evolved significantly in recent years, from design bid build to more collaborative methods like progressive design build, construction manager, GC, there's all different models out there. So how have some of these changes to project delivery affected the way that leaders need to operate and leaders need to oversee these projects?
Yeah, great question too. And so from my evolution in my career, I've been able to touch all those project types. And maybe I'd say that was one of the biggest benefits on the global firm is being able to be program manager on a mega project, right? And really being part of the ownership team and making those decisions and guiding the ownership in terms of the delivery of that project. Something I would not have likely gotten on at a small company. And there are opportunities here at Parametrix. So the great thing that I've learned through that is on those projects, what do you need besides engineers? You need those soft skills. So we already touched on that. In order to be on these collaborative design build, progressive design build, CMGC, what's the difference? The difference is instead of an engineer going back to their desk and designing a bridge and detailing the plans and finishing it all up and then it going out to bid to a contractor, we're meeting early and often with the contractor, with the owner. How can we do this faster? How can we do this cheaper? How can we deliver this in different packages? Something that as a young engineer, I was not really exposed to. And so as I've gotten further in my career, it reinforced the idea that you need to have those soft skills, especially if you're in a leadership position on one of these projects. If me as the engineer, if I'm not willing to speak up, if I'm not willing to take a risk or communicate a potential issue, then my value as an engineer may not make its way into the project the same way it would if I were back at my desk spending months delivering these plans and submitting it. I need to get my voice out there early in the project and often so that I can influence the same way that I would in a separate project. So I found that I've heard this since I've joined ASCE. We need more soft skills. We need to have a broader engineering background that touches, besides all the technical things that I learned at the university, what about the soft skills? What about the legal issues? What about public speaking? All those things. I think the way that our projects have evolved and become more complicated, it is even more important now than it ever was.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And with some of these new collaborative project delivery methods, you're interacting with people more. Bottom line, like Craig said, you're out there, you're interacting more with people. The technical professional is becoming more of the facilitator and that kind of middle person between a lot of different stakeholders. And that's really important. And so if you are a leader in the industry, if you are a project manager, program manager, or aspiring to any of those, your soft skills are critical. And pretty much anything that you can do to develop them is going to be helpful. And, Craig gave some great examples of how, volunteering can help you. Like his work with ASCE has helped him a lot with his public speaking skills, some of his other people soft skills. But you need to do whatever you can to build those skills, because with the way projects are run today, you're going to need to communicate more with a lot more people. And anything you can do to help with that is only going to help you grow as a leader. So, Craig, what's one final piece of advice that you can share with AEC leaders that are working to grow, resilient, high-performing teams in today's kind of evolving infrastructure environment?
I think I always say just don't forget about the people, right? We are sitting here talking about firms and where have I worked and different locations and types of firms, but the common ingredient is the people. And that's something that I've learned over my career is focus on your people, that whether that's developing them, training them, mentoring them, get to know them, right? If you do all of those things, it will pay dividends, tenfold. You're going to find people that are engaged. They're wanting to work on your projects. They're wanting to deliver for you. They're willing to work late when we need to get something done. But if you treat people as a commodity, which there's certain firms that go down that path, you're not going to experience those same benefits.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that it all comes back to people leadership. In fact, I think it's just, I know as a technical professional, when we start our careers, we're used to equations and all these types of reports that we run. But as you get into leadership, I think what you're going to see is it's about people. It's about interacting with people. It's about people internal to your organization, people external to your organization, the public, if you're dealing with, public facing projects. And so, kind of the running theme here today is really, really focus on building up those people skills, those speaking skills. And I hope you can kind of take some examples from what Craig has done in volunteering, because it's a powerful thing. Because yes, it helps you to build your network and it helps you to get to know people in your industry. But more importantly than that, in my opinion, it helps to build all of these skills that you're going to need to be a successful leader. And it's going to expedite your development, because as we talked about earlier, sometimes it's hard for your company to throw you into projects as a younger PM or a younger leader, if you will. But associations usually don't mind that. They're looking for volunteers. And if you're willing to kind of roll up your sleeves and raise your hand, you're in charge of the golf outing, right?
Right.
So by doing that, it's going to build those skills and it's going to set you up for big time success in your career. So once again, Craig Shannon, Vice President and California Regional Leader at Parametrix. Craig, I want to thank you so much for spending some time with us today on the AEC Leadership Podcast.
Thanks, Anthony. Appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Craig. Funny enough, we met a long time ago at an AEC conference. So the idea of everything he talked about, including relationship building through volunteer work, is definitely something that has helped him and me as well. And I was excited to have him. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please subscribe to our channel here. We do put out videos like this on a weekly basis to help AEC professionals become better managers and leaders. I'll see you next week.